right. What do you say we get started with the worst podcast that we will probably... I mean, and that's saying a lot. If this ends up being our worst ever...
Yeah, because we've done a Mellowcorn episode, so...
because we did an episode with Milton.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I gotta go back and find this Milton one, because y'all were giving him so much smack on the last one.
Oh, that made it in?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I leave a lot in.
I should start watching our podcast.
Steven's like the SNL Jeopardy skit where Will Ferrell's playing Alex Trebek, and he's like, "What did I say about ethnic slurs?" And it's like Steven's always taking out the offensive stuff Dan says, and then leaves in the backstabby comments.
All right. Well, what do you say we get started? Welcome to another episode of Another Bourbon Show. We had a last minute change because I'm an idiot.
It's usually me.
Well, okay, let's be clear here, Ryan. Ryan, you're still an idiot, okay? You still are. I just happened to do something idiotic. That's the difference.
I was like, man, if I would have done that, Dan would have been yelling at me. You're so stupid.
Well,
you're
yeah.
in Chicago, you live, you think you're cool. That stuff.
No, I would never say that you think you're cool because I know better. Like, you don't think you're cool. You know you're not. But so, yeah, last minute change. We were supposed to be drinking something completely different, but I failed to provide it to Steven. I don't know how I messed that up, but I messed one up going to Steven. I messed one up earlier this month going to Ryan. So I'm on a roll here.
I got free Pappy, so that was pretty cool. How did he get that mess up?
he got some free Pappy 15 that he thought was Maker's Mark 46. Very strange world we live in these days. But instead, we're just having a free-for-all. We're just getting together. We're just bullshitting, and we're all drinking different things. So let's go around the horn here. Connor, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking, and it's cool because they're very active on TikTok. Hope they see this. Cedar Ridge's single barrel collection of their lovely Iowa bourbon. This edition is coming out at 121.6 proof, and it tastes all of that. For anyone who's curious, came from shed number 7, barrel number 14.317, bottle number 117.
Very cool. Sounds delightful. Steven, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking some Knob Creek Single Barrel Select Bourbon. This is actually from the R Bourbon subreddit. It's a pick that they did. It was, Jesus Christ. Warehouse X, Floor 3, Rick 40. Barrel date was 5/25/2011. And then the selected date was September 4th of 2020. And they call it their Course Marshall No pick. And it's 120 proof. It's a spicy boy, but it's a good pick, heavy on the peanut.
Yeah. I like Knob Creek. It's never subtle, but it's always good, in my opinion.
Steven, do you have the option on the bottle to upvote or downvote it?
No, but this one would get a solid upvote and Reddit gold if I could.
Oh, I'll give it Reddit silver, but not Reddit gold.
All right, what about you, Ryan?
I am drinking a gift from a friend, Stag Jr.
Attaboy.
Yeah,
right.
So we got 65.55% alcohol, barrel proof, unfiltered, 131.1, baby.
Very cool. And I, too, am drinking some Stag Jr. This one is batch 14, 130.2 proof. So yours is batch 15, mine's 14, if memory serves. But yeah, I've got some other batch cask strengths, but this one is wonderful. So it'll get me super drunk. So what more could you want? So what's going on with you guys? What's going on? I see these two assholes all the time. What's going on with you, Connor?
Just got off work racing home. Currently training one of the other distillers at work to run our nondescript still in Park City, which is cool because that's the first time that still's been fired up for 2022. making a really interesting malted barley whiskey with that. Other than that, just been making a whole bunch of rye. Tours are now open at my nondescript distillery that I may or may not work at.
Mhm.
And they've been interesting. Some folks have really interesting questions where their chemistry far exceeds where my C plus average is, or there's been tour guests who see a yellow barrier blocking them from touching the still, and they go, I'm Catholic, I'll get forgiveness, not permission. And they just try and walk right past it, and I have to be like, no sir, please take a step back. But other than that, things have been great.
Hey,
All
Dan, I guess you're muted on your phone, by the way. We got a couple people commenting.
There it is.
How is that possible?
I don't know.
Riveting content.
Some guy named Schlittle Bimmy said can't hear. He's muted. Can't hear anything.
That's not possible. It's got to be on his end.
Yeah, let me try watching on mine.
I can't wait for this feedback.
Yeah,
right.
I can hear. I turned it down quickly. I heard it fine.
Okay. Well, all four of our TikTok viewers, he's the only one complaining. So
He said he's muted. Can't hear anything. Can't hear Ryan either.
Ew, so they can only hear me? I don't want to do that.
And me.
Oh. Okay, so yes, I am an idiot.
You're not
Oh, it's
sharing
'cause
audio.
you guys are on your phones.
I'm on my earbud, so they can hear me, but not.
Oh,
Oof.
Sometimes I'm very dumb. Okay.
All right,
sometimes
Steven. So the title is Dan's Big Screw Up or something like that.
sometimes there's a man.
All right. Is that now better? Dan did mess up. Dan always messes up.
So for those of us who have never served in the military, such as myself, especially growing up in America, we're taught this like reverence for the military. And I'm definitely not going to slam the military here, but my supervisor was was in the Army, and he passionately describes the morons in uniform, as he calls them, that he had to work with. And I understand it's a government job just like everything else. And let's face it, when people go to government jobs, it's because they couldn't get a private industry job. as a child of at least one government worker, and my brother is now a government worker, I know an individual in the Air Force who is currently stationed in Minot, North Dakota, where most of the nukes are kept. This kid is so stupid. And the fact that, like, I know they use like older tech, so it can't be hacked, but like, I don't think he can even figure that out. So with like, they're like, if Putin wants to throw the nuclear option on the table, we will respond in kind. And I was like, I wouldn't count on him. I know who's in charge of at least one, and I could do better from watching Hollywood movies. Like, this kid's not going to help very much.
Yeah. So the hardest part about basic training for me was dealing with the stupidity of other people in basic training. Like, I had no problem with the physical or the being berated. That was all fine. But the stupidity of others was just mind numbing. And then there's like situations in the military that are exactly at play with what you're talking about. That, first of all, there's a phrase, good enough for government work. Like, look, I didn't do the best job at doing A, B, or C, but fuck it, it's good enough for
You're
government.
talking about Afghanistan?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Essentially. And then there's the situations like, and this is a very real situation. We were getting ready to come back from Iraq, and before you come back from Iraq, any equipment has to be like really thoroughly cleaned. Like, none of the dirt from Iraq is supposed to be brought back because contaminants and blah blah blah. Yeah. And it goes through like a quality control, and they're like, nope, keep cleaning. Here, I found some dirt. Sent a piece of equipment through like 3 times, and it kept getting kicked back. So I literally looked at my platoon and was just like, fuck it, paint over it. And instead of cleaning it more thoroughly, we repainted it, because I realized that well, that way it's gonna pass.
Bro, you could be a landlord with that attitude. Light switch, electrical outlet, just white paint. Just
Yeah, just paint
cover
over
it
the
all.
top of it. It's fine.
Do you guys hear that like a bunch of Russian soldiers are like in like horrible shape now because they were like digging in like the forest of Chernobyl, and like they were digging trenches and stuff,
Oh,
and it like
The
pulled
red
up a bunch of
forest is the
radiation.
most
Red forest,
radioactive
yeah.
part on the planet.
Yeah, and they dug trenches in it, dude. And now they're just like, well, we need to get the. And now they took those guys on like buses to like a local hospital.
Dude, they're gonna bring him to a quarry and then collapse the quarry on top of them. That's awful.
Oh,
Like literally,
man.
I don't know if you guys ever saw the Vice News bit, but Shane Lewis, I think, and like two others got into Chernobyl. This was back when Vice News was
Oh
cool.
right, yeah, Shane
And
Smith,
like
right?
Shane Smith, that's his name. And they got into Chernobyl with the guy, whatever, and they were just hammered drunk because they're like, this is how the firefighters survived, the night of the fire that burned down Chernobyl. So like, let's get drunk. And they were lit, and they're like the theme was to like hunt some of the radioactive animals or something, like the hogs or the wild dogs, whatever. And they're like, they see something and they start running after it, and they're running towards the red forest. And their guide is like, don't do that. And they're like, they're hammer drunk. And they're like, why? And they're like, that is the most radioactive piece of land on the planet right now. And they were like, oh, okay, so yeah, we'll go back. Like, all right.
Their Vice guide to North Korea
Oh,
was like
so
one of
good.
the best documentaries I've ever seen. It's like it's incredible that they got in, and then there was so many good segments. Like you remember, like I for the rest of my life, I'll remember that tea girl who just
Yeah.
like lives in that shop. And for you guys, if you haven't seen it, basically like they get in, they have like a basically like a courier of some kind who pays off these people to allow them into North Korea to take what is a very guided tour of North Korea for the sake
But
of
they
the
claimed
Vice guide.
Canadian status, I think. I think that's how they got
Oh,
in.
okay.
They didn't go in as Americans, they went in as Canadians.
Gotcha. And so they're able to get in, and they go on this very staged, weird tour where, like, at the first night, they're at this like big banquet hall where they just have like mountains and mountains of horrible food that's basically just for
Fried
show.
matter.
Yeah, they call it fried matter. It's just there basically because like they want to show off the fact that they like we have plenty of food here, you know?
Yeah.
And then a bunch of weird stuff happens on the tour. And one of my favorite and most memorable, I think, is they come across, they act like it's spontaneous, that they stop in this countryside for some tea at this like tea house. But you go and it's like no one's there except for this one girl, like this one like maiden kind of person who like waits on you, and she'll like get tea for you and stuff. They have different like games like pool and stuff like that, like you can play billiards and she'll play with you or whatever. But she seemed very excited to have them there and whatever. And then like as they're like they spend some time there, they have a good time. And they said it's like one of the best times they had on the trip, probably. It's just fun. And as they're leaving though, they kind of realize like this tea girl is like she's gonna wait here all alone in the middle of nowhere until the next tour comes through like this. Like that's her
It's
existence.
so dark.
You know.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a novel idea. Why don't we talk about bourbon?
Uh,
whiskey.
See, that doesn't quite work for me because I am in kind of in a Syrian mood, okay? And I just want to talk about Syria.
We could talk about you'll make fun of my pronunciation because it's wrong, but we could talk about rock. Is that how it's pronounced?
Iraq.
Anybody know about that?
Iraq.
Rock. It's a Middle Eastern alcohol.
Yeah, it's the anise. That's what Ryan and I had.
No idea.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
The Jepsons, my lord of Aleppo.
Kind of.
What is Aleppo? What was that, Gary Johnson or someone?
Yeah, why don't we talk about whiskey? Something about whiskey.
All right,
Pick
all
a
right,
topic.
all right. I've got some riveting debate here. I feel like Top Gear when they're like having their little conversation street or whatever. I've heard this phrase iterated by multiple distillers, professional distillers. This is their livelihood. I'm just gonna say it, and I'm gonna see what you guys think about it. Okay. Let's say you're running a hybrid still, so a pot still base with a column attached. So it's not a column still that you draw off from and you continuously feed. It is a batch
Neither one of
still with
these
a
two know
column.
what the fuck you're talking about, by the way.
Dan doesn't either, but he's going to act more
Yes, I
macho
do.
about it because of his military training.
So think about it this way. You have your big column stills where it's usually 2 columns or one big old one stacked on top of each other, and that's how you produce vodka. That's how they mass produce bourbon, Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, Sazerac, etc. Or you have pot stills like McCowan or Middleton with the 3 massive pot stills, whatever. Or you have a middle ground of a hybrid still, and you'll see a lot of craft distillers like St. George and Alameda in California was one of the first really push this, where you have a pot with it that feeds into a column, and it cuts their distillation time in half. Or you could do essentially 2 distillations in one if you plan correctly. Now, even if you guys aren't still engineers, you should still have an opinion on this. Each of those plates in the column has bubble caps. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay. It produces reflux. Are you familiar with the term a thumper from moonshine? A thumper or a doubler?
No.
Okay. What they do is they reflux the spirit, and then the spirit is now sitting in a pool of liquid that is of a lower boiling point. And then the idea is that the spirit kind of refluxes and refines itself and comes back out into the vapor stream because it's got a lower boiling point than the liquid that's sitting there. And then it goes on to your condenser and then out your parrot, and you can try it. There are distillers that say that at each level in a column, that is another distillation. If it's 6 plates in a column, they go, oh, it's 7 times distilled because the 6 in the column and then the 1 in the pot. Other distillers say that it is only 1 time distilled when it comes out of your condenser and out of, it comes out your product line. Which way do you guys feel? Do you think those plates count as redistillations? Like if someone says, this vodka is 7 times distilled, but it's only been through a still once, but it got, sent through the bubble cap 6 times. Or do you think it has to go all the way through the still and all the way through the condenser and out the product line to be called distilled?
Do you want me to go first or last?
Go ahead and go first, Ricky Bobby.
I 100% believe that is a single distillation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my reasoning for that is purely semantic. I don't even care about the science behind it. To me, that's one distillation process.
Okay.
If you if you had 7 distills and it came out of the parrot and directly fed into a separate still and then cycled through like a line distillation process, if it was 7 stills back to back, to me, that would be 7 distillations.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a cheap way just to sell bottles. Going through the motions faster, and then oh, here's a 7 or 8 times distilled vodka. Just you put that on the bottle just to make it seem like your vodka's not shitty. The more time we distill it, the better it's going to taste. But
which, if you run the still badly 7 times, it doesn't make it a better vodka. And then if you run the still once, great. What do you think, Steven?
Yeah, I agree with these two. I think that it's. I was going to get into because of this. This reminds me that this past week, a friend of mine who's a big coffee fan, he pointed out that at Starbucks now, he pointed out to me that they have a whiskey barrel aged. It's actually Knob Creek barrel aged coffee.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. There's some really cool producers that are doing stuff like that. They take an empty barrel, fill it with coffee, tumble it, and then package the beans, sell them.
So I guess my comment is that whenever you say something is 7 times distilled, to me, that's kind of akin to saying that coffee is barrel aged, because I think you're stretching what that term means in other contexts, right? If you're aging whiskey, that's different than if you're aging coffee beans. Those are 2 different things. But
sure.
In the context of what you're saying, you're kind of implying it's aged in the same way that the whiskey is, which to just the average person. Maybe they have no clue what that means. And it's just a way to market and capitalize, obviously, on the bourbon craze and people who like bourbon and would try it, but maybe don't know what they're talking about. It's just, maybe you are technically correct, maybe you're not, but it's at best it's predatory.
And I'm going to give you one more example of a similarity. Okay, so Connor, you probably know the math. Like, I'm making up numbers here, okay?
Okay.
But a 53-gallon barrel, I age whiskey in a 53-gallon barrel which is just a barrel, by the way, for 4 years. But I put that whiskey in a half cask for 2 years. And I claim that that's a 4-year whiskey because the surface contact area of a half cask or a quarter cask, that would automatically be called bullshit, right?
Yeah.
People would be
not only would that be called BS, but the TTB would shut
of
you
course
down
they would.
so
Of course
hard.
they would. But I call it that, right? I say,
Yeah.
oh, well, this is essentially a 4-year bourbon, a 4-year whiskey, because it was in a quarter cask for a year and a half, and that's the surface area contact equivalent of 1 year in a 53-gallon barrel. That would be, take TTB out of it, people would be calling utter bullshit on it.
Oh yeah, you'd lose credibility like Templeton Rye or something. Like, just
and to
everyone's
me,
gonna hate you.
To me, that's the equivalent.
So the reason I bring it up, I have quite a few mentors in this game. Murphy Quint from Cedar Ridge, Caitlin Bartlemay from Hood River Distillers, Austin Adamson from Balmer Peak. Like, none of them have ever claimed this absolute horse piss, snake medicine bull crap. Like, it's total nonsense. Every time I've heard it perpetuated, it's always been a craft distillery, and the owner or the distiller, sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not, is self-taught for the most part. And I personally feel that it comes from a lack of understanding of the distillation process and being able to describe it. Because, like, once you can teach something, that's when I feel like you truly know it or you have a good grasp on it. And they can't teach others reflux and a refining process. So I just go, just redistills. And it's like, it does in the most simplest nonsense way. Like, it doesn't really, but like it kind of does. But like, it's those semantics where it's like, do you know your stuff or are you full of crap? And when they say like, oh, it's 7 times distilled, like, I've never personally met someone that says it. I always see it on their social media or on their website. Mm-hmm. And like, I just immediate credibility tanks to the floor because I'm like, you either don't know what you're doing, which is really frustrating for me because I want to open my own distillery, and seeing people who, if I'm being, selfish and rude here, are like worse than me, or at least less knowledgeable than me, it's frustrating. Or on the other hand, they're con artists, in which case I want them out of spirits, because that's who wants cons in their, like, watering down their brand of whatever they do for work? You know what I mean?
Well, let's be honest here. Like, snake oil salesmen are a huge reason why the whiskey sales in the United States tanked for a huge, long period of time. And the recovery from that took, I mean, it's not like, you could say it took almost a century for it to recover from the damage caused by snake oil salesmen, right? Like,
I would say the recovery started with Taft passing the Bottled in Bond Act. That was that first food quality assurance law. And then
and that's when it started.
Yeah, right? No, that's not when it came into effect. But yeah, when it started, and then Upton Sinclair writing The Jungle, talking about meat production, like, that's when you see whiskey like being integral to our daily lives here in America, and
becoming trusted again.
Yeah,
and then it just wasn't popular for years. But yeah, I mean,
that's why light whiskey was a thing for a while, and then Canada was like, yeah, we'll hang our flag on that, and it's like, all right, you weird Canucks. Not what I would do, but teach their own.
I think you need to come up with words specifically for those kind of processes, you know. And if you don't, if in the absence of that, the marketing team is always going to take whatever is most favorable to them, you know. And so with the coffee beans, I just wish instead of saying aged, they almost called it finished or something, because I think it's more
or
akin
rested
to like
or something.
Yeah, it's more akin to, that's what kind of like finishing the coffee beans would look like. That's the equivalent in the whiskey world. So
2 hours later.
When Will starts walking up, he takes 2 steps forward. And then Will slaps him and he takes 2 steps back.
Another bourbon show. Another bourbon show. Another bourbon show.
So it's also backfiring on them if it's fake, because they're saying like, you know, how can you possibly celebrate this man after he just did something like that? So
You know what? I'm gonna make it public. You changed my mind. And I'm not even. I'm not fucking around here. I'm being serious here.
Wait, change your mind to what?
To where it's not fake. It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
fake. Like you changed my mind. There is, like, basically you took, like, I'm gonna go back to a fucking Gen Xer term. You swept the leg on every single one of the possible reasons why it would have occurred.
yeah,
So, Chris Rock